So this video is on how to heal anything. Um, so the goal of this video is to make it so that you stop looking for techniques. Because once you know how to do this, you'll realize that it's not your lack of knowledge, it's not your lack of understanding that prevents you from being healthy or from being well. It's genuinely just all what boils down to basically like self-hate. And that's why there's not enough discipline to do it regularly. That's why you do practices that are counter to this one, right? So if you understand this technique, the really mind-blowing thing is you look at all the ways in your day that you're doing the exact opposite of this, and you can see why your momentum is so far in the direction of death. And how easy it would be to just be okay, but it's like there's a yeah, so hopefully this technique is all encompassing and fully explanatory in its totality in terms of the technique behind healing. And then you'll notice that you won't be able to apply the technique, right? So the way that people have taught this before is they're like, oh, how do I become enlightened, or how do I find my true self, or how do you just sit there and do nothing, right? So they go, oh, no technique, don't even worry about it, it has nothing to do with it, right? But I think knowing the technique, doing the thing, and being able to like actually learn how to resurrect your tissue, actually learn how to heal, it lets you see where that's trying to happen all the time innately, and you're in the way of it. So it's like healing is it's not about technique. It's about cessation of the self-sabotage, because the healing is naturally happening. So it's like, anyway. So anything that's in the body that is your breath is alive and it's vibrant. So there's a couple of things that can go wrong in the body. One is that the breath can go away. So that's tissue becoming stiff, fibrotic, paralyzed, cramped, matter-like, just not breathing, like stuff, right? So you'll find that your entire body is like made of death, and then there's parts of you inside of that are breathing, and that dead stuff is like that breathing, that breath is the electricity, is the energy of life. And as that goes through you, if the breath is going through that area in a complete and regular and systemic way, it goes, there's some good tissue and you're healthy, right? So yeah, that can shut down, the breath can go away, and or you can start getting a foreign breath in there. You can get an aspect of your psychology can become powerful enough that it actually starts breathing, or a foreign intelligence can invade you and start breathing. So that could be like any sort of parasite. Like a bacteria, virus, those all have breath. So it's like the direction of electrons is not under your, right there. You have a particular impulse and a particular breath, and so the body can pick up foreign breaths, right? You can actually get foreign, so if something starts breathing, not only does it breathe, but that breath actually starts to form body. Because it starts energy, the breathing is a circular rotational pattern, and so as it starts to breathe and rotate, it actually takes form or substance. Sometimes that can look like cancer, right? Those are cells that are breathing on their own. Cysts, it can be not so distinct as like cancer, but it could be a tension pattern that actually will move around the body. Or like a particular, like some of these breathing patterns are like very dark or whatever, and it'll move around the mind into the heart, and you'll see these like mental patterns. that are breathing, and so the more that those are let go and breathe, they can become stronger and stronger in the body. Just like the more that you breathe, the stronger your body becomes. If like a piece of like propaganda, or a lot of the times it's self-taught, like that's those reoccurring thoughts, the things that are happening of their own. Like if they kind of happen just like wind and storm and stuff, but sometimes they can get going to where it's like a self-propel, like a tornado. There's wind, right? You look at a tornado and you go, what is normally invisible is rotating so much right there that it's like I see a tornado. Otherwise the wind is like, where is the object? It's all of it doing it at once. But if it gets like going crazy, you go, oh, there's a thing. So things that are in an invisible medium can sometimes start throwing so much stuff around that you go, ah, there it is, right there. So those things in that type of breath are smaller than the body, and sometimes they're like distributed thought patterns that move through culture, right? So it's just you can look, if you understand what your breath is, you can look out and you can see lots of other different types of breath. Everywhere that there's a breath, there's like a locus of consciousness with will. And then the personalities can get more and more and more complex, and the personalities are kind of limited by the species. Like all the cockroaches exist within the personality of the cockroaches, and inside of that is their breath's individuality. Like we all exist inside the breath of a human. And then as a human, you can exist inside the breath of like a larger, like a deity that's breathing. So to heal, there's those ones. There's the crazy realm of breath of all the different creatures and entities and stuff. And then there's the one of like, my tissues just kind of, we'll stick with the normal one. It's all related though. So I'll work on my back. And I just move around enough that I feel, oh, there's my back. It's an object, it's there. So like what you're feeling, anything you can feel is not the breath. Like the breath is mysterious. It doesn't make any sense that it's the body, because the body's still there when you stop breathing. It's what moves the body. But what moves the body is still in the realm of physical. Like the life force, the metabolism is in the body. And where the metabolism and the life force is like very, 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 very high, like very, very high, you don't feel much object. It's just all information, it's all breath. So the best place that you can see what that's like, to be totally free, to be totally healed, at least from the standpoint of the body, like the mind is obviously prone to mental illness, but in terms of physical illness, in terms of vitality, paradoxically, the mind is the most living, vibrant place in the whole body, besides maybe the heart. But I think the mind is a gazillion times more. The electricity of the mind is just immense. There's so much life in it that you can't even notice the matter. Like you can't even begin to feel the matter of the mind the same way that you do the back. Like, oh, there's the back. Like, where's the mind? You can't see it. There's a radiant, shining thing of thought and knowing and understanding and life force. It's like all the and we see this reflected in like the caloric content of the mind in the breath. Like as you breathe and eat, like the vast, like literally, I think the majority of that goes to your head most of the time. So it's on fire. It's like the sun in terms of its metabolic activity. And so that's an example or a taste of like, okay, if my spine was to come to life, if I was to heal it, if I was to bring the metabolism up, like what's actually within the realm of possibility. At the super high end of the spectrum, probably impossible. You could get your back in your mind, the nerves and the metabolism and the breath and life could be so active that it's as active as your mind. And then it's as ephemeral as a thought and as movable as a thought. So when people have that much activity, their body is very limber, like supple. And so it's like, because you have mind, because you're conscious, because you're awake, like you have an example of the radiance of life happening in your own body. You're doing it. Like in that area, you're that alive. So just look at there and be like, whoa, what am I doing right there? And it's like, right, you're not doing anything. And anything that you do to the mind actually condenses it. It just like, it starts to like, oh, whoa, there's a object in the mind, or I'm doing something, versus like the mind by itself is most energetic. So you can kind of use a little bit of movement to find, oh, where am I stiff? Where would this most be useful? That kind of gives you a little bit of motivation. Some contrast, and it's like, okay, I feel like my back is stiff. I feel like I have arthritis. So And so I'm just trying to notice or remember that all of this, my stiffness, the body, the arthritis, everything is in the mind. It's in the mind. It's of the same lightness as thought, and that's obvious. And so then I have to look at, okay, so what's going on? And it's like there's a lot of behaviors that I have that it's like, oh, the body's not as light as thought. Like, so anytime I'm checking the phone, that's behaving as if my body is not as light as thought, as if my sensitivity is not magically perceptive. Like anytime that I, so it's like there's different relational patterns, work patterns, just attentional patterns, things that you do throughout the day that are done from a belief system where all that stuff is dead, from a world where all that stuff is dead, all those actions and activities happen because of an assumption of disease, because of an assumption of pathology, because of the assumption that something is horrible in my being, and so that's why I'm doing this distraction, or that's why I'm doing this activity, or that's why I'm telling this lie, or that's why I'm doing this job. That's why I'm abandoning this responsibility. It's like there's an assumption that there's something not radiant about the experience to like disassociate from, and then that causes the death to happen. That causes the arthritis. My problems are 100% just probably phone usage. Or 100% just other activities, like pathological activities. But I can sit here with a practice or a prayer rule or something like that and just kind of like undo a little bit of the damage. But it's like this is just what's happening naturally, and so it's all the activities and the behaviors where this is prevented from or assumed to not be happening. Like you create an imagination where the truth isn't the truth. and then live inside the imagination. You can't even escape the reality of like goodness or God's love. It's impossible to even get out of there. So you have to project. It has to be self-hatred creates a imaginary dream world, and then you pretend you're in that the same way that you pretend you're in the story of a book. It's like, why? Okay, only self-hate could make you try and do that. So then you can do stuff with the breath. Like I can feel the breath going past every area of my body as I move. And so everything is like that simple. Like if you're going to do something with the breath, it's just and then not losing that ever starts to do very magical things because it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. It's simultaneously like way more complex than that. The breath has nothing to do with like the in and out. Like no. It's like all in the blood. It's all, but oh no, wait a second, that's not true because this is all perception. This is all mental perception. So it's all made of the breath in that direction. So the in and out that's a contact point. There's these patterns or these events that we see in the world are contact points, ways that we interact with the breath directly. They're not. This is not a means of knowing intellectually. Anyway, yeah. So like I said, that should clear up all confusion, and now you should be able to heal. Right?